Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're here to officially welcome Inter Miami head coach Phil Neville and Chief Soccer Officer and Sporting Director Chris Henderson. To get us started, I'd like to welcome Inter Miami co-owners Jorge Mas and David Beckham, who will provide some opening remarks followed by a media Q&A session before we continue on with Phil and Chris. At this point, I'd like to ask Jorge to please kick us off.
Thank you very much, Jackie. And to me, an honor and a privilege today to be here next to my partner, my friend David Beckham, and discuss items related to Inter Miami. But before that, I want to wish everybody many blessings, a happy new year, and may 2021 bring us, good health and safety above everything. I want to go back and talk a little bit about the beginning of Inter Miami, what drives our club, and since day one, among the ownership group and everyone who has been a part of our organization and a team, they know we're an aspirational organization, a team that wants to build the DNA and culture that hopefully is unique to the MLS and allows us the ability to establish a winning culture here in South Florida, reflective of the passion that exists here for football, for soccer, and as a personification of our fans, and I think resemblance of the diverse community that we live in. So, without a doubt, to launch in 2020, ourselves in Nashville was a very difficult year to launch. We do not and will not use COVID as an excuse either for our performance or on the pitch or any other reason. Every single team in the league had to go through their difficulties, their obstacles, and their challenges. Notwithstanding that, I think that we had some major achievements in this past year, which was first to kick off and bring football back to South Florida, to build an amazing facility, a state-of-the-art training center for our players and our teams and our academy system, to build a stadium, which we're in the bowels of now, which will house 19,000 rabid and passionate fans. And I want to thank the mayor and the city of Fort Lauderdale for helping us and cooperating and being able to build this facility in record time and be ready for, at that time, the launch of the 2020 season that unfortunately got postponed. But today we are here to make, two announcements. The announcement of Phil Neville as our manager and our head coach, and Chris Henderson as our sporting director and our chief soccer officer. And it's important to note that from ownership's point of view, we are emphasizing and we're laser focused on continuing to build a winning culture here, to make sure that when our players or anyone who joins our organization, they become better people and better players once they've been through Inter Miami and the infrastructure and the system that we have established here. I know that we're going to be taking questions shortly, but again, I want to reiterate that this is a new chapter for Inter Miami. We very much look forward to the opening of the 21 season with new leadership on board to aspire to again, a winning culture, and most importantly, to hopefully be competing for cups in the future.
Thank you, Jorge. Can you please offer some thoughts in Spanish as well?
Sí, antes de todo quiero agradecer, primero desearle a todo el mundo un feliz 2021, muchas bendiciones y especialmente salud. Cuando la creación de Inter Miami, que siempre queríamos nosotros como dueños que sea un reflejo de nuestra comunidad, de la pasión para el fútbol y la diversidad de nuestra comunidad sea reflejada en tu equipo, en lo que es Inter Miami. Y para nosotros era importante enfocar en establecer una cultura aquí en Inter Miami, donde sean jugadores, ejecutivos o personas que son parte del equipo Inter Miami puedan seguir elevándose como mejores seres humanos, mejores jugadoras y en realidad elevar la excelencia del equipo y el deporte aquí en el sur de la Florida. Estamos aquí hoy para anunciar el nuevo director técnico, que es Phil Neville, y el nuevo director deportivo, que es Chris Henderson, que viene de Seattle. Sin duda el año 2020 para nosotros lleno de obstáculos, dado al COVID y la pandemia. Fue un año extremadamente difícil para lanzarnos en nuestra primera temporada, pero para nosotros no es una excusa al COVID. Y nosotros vamos a seguir enfocando para mejorar la cultura del equipo, para establecer una DNA que es única en esta liga, para establecer una cultura de poder ganar, de poder competir para copas constantemente. So, para mí hoy, aquí junto con David Beckham, me da agrado en presentar a los nuevos líderes de este club y reiterar nuestro compromiso al sur de la Florida, que por parte de los dueños nosotros vamos a seguir invirtiendo no solamente en la infraestructura, que tenemos aquí un centro de entrenamiento que en mi estimación es el mejor del país y un estadio donde ojalá que pronto en este año podemos tener 19,000 fanáticos celebrando con su equipo aquí durante partidos. Pero les doy la bienvenida y adelante Inter Miami. Jackie.
Thank you, Jorge. David, if I could also ask you to share some thoughts, please.
Of course, thank you, Jackie, and of course, thank you, Jorge. Firstly, I want to say it's great to be back in Miami. I didn't think it would take this long to be able to travel again, but obviously now being back in Miami, it was my utmost priority to get back as soon as possible. So I'm very happy to be here. Happy New Year to everybody as we go into this next season. We're very excited and we wanted to give you a sense of our ambition. So welcome to everybody. Firstly, I'd obviously like to say thank you so much for the support that we've had from the media, from everybody that's been involved in this club, from our fans, from our staff, and everyone that is part of our club. We're very excited to go into this next season. You know, like I said, we've made a few changes, which we're very confident about. You know, obviously bringing Chris Henderson in and obviously Philip Neville with his experience and with their experience in the game. So we're very excited about that. Obviously, last season, you know, we achieved a lot. You know, if we spoke at the start of this as owners and as a club about, you know, this being a challenging season without what has gone on this year around the world. So the challenge, obviously, on the field, off the field was very evident. But I think the fact that we achieved a lot on the field, you know, reaching the playoffs, having the fans back in the stadium, the amount of fans that we've had, we were very proud of that. But we know going forward, you know, as a club, we will always want to learn and evolve. And this is part of the next part of our history with this club. So very excited about this season, very excited to be back in Miami, and this was my utmost priority because last year it was very frustrating, you know, watching the games from, you know, my house in the UK at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. But now I've been here for the last 3 weeks and been able to be around the club and be around, you know, the staff and to see exactly what we need to do moving forward, which is why we've made the changes that we've made, which we're very, like I said, very confident about. But like I said, my priority was always to be back here and be around the facility, be around the players, and do exactly what I always dreamt of doing, which was be a very hands-on owner. So I'm very excited. And like I said, welcome to everybody again, and thank you for your support so far.
Thank you, David. At this point, we will open the floor for some questions. Please keep in mind we do have over 60 media members on this call, so we ask you to limit your questions to one per opportunity. Please state your name, your outlet, and who your question is for once your line has been unmuted. Friendly reminder, questions in Spanish will only be answered by Jorge. For the first question, let's start with David Wilson. David, your line is off mute.
Hey guys, thanks for doing this. It's David Wilson from the Miami Herald. First of all, just what you saw from year one, what do you feel like you guys kind of saw from last season that sort of felt prompted the necessity to make some of these, you know, big changes, obviously? And what do you guys think you were bringing in with Phil and Chris that maybe was lacking last season?
You know, last season, and the decisions that we've made about bringing on board Chris Henderson and Phil Neville don't necessarily have to do with just wins and losses or the points that we accumulated during 2020. For us, as we alluded to earlier, it goes beyond that. It goes to what happens in non-game days. It goes to you know, building a culture here that goes into how do we make players better here. And it goes from aspects of sports performance, medical, training, nutrition, education, so many factors and facets that go into excelling on the field. And we felt, David and I, and especially I'm very gratified that he's here in Miami, and that his, fingerprints are on not only, these moves, but in everything that we're doing on the sporting side of Inter Miami. But these moves were precipitated by the fact that we as owners aspire, we won't settle for mediocrity, and we think that in bringing in new leadership that can help us excel in all of the areas, that will make us a better club and a better team, and again, establish a DNA and culture that's a reflection of ownership's aspirations. And we felt that bringing Chris and Phil at this time were the leaders that we needed for the following chapters of Inter Miami in 21 and beyond.
Yeah, and I'd also say that, obviously I can speak on the soccer side of things and what goes on around the training facility, what goes on the field, and I felt that I needed, someone to come in and someone, to make a change is something where we wanted to bring, the DNA into this club. And it's one thing I spoke about from day one about, indenting a DNA, a culture within this club, because we are a new team, we are a new franchise that's come into this league. So, there's a certain culture that has to run through the academy system to the USL and into the team, and also that runs through the building as well. So bringing in someone like Phil, I've had a long history with Phil, on the field, off the field. I know what he's like as a personality. I know what he's like as a coach, and I know what he's like as a human being. He's trustworthy, he's loyal, and he's hardworking. And I think that to bring that into our club, to bring that into our training facility, not just to work with our main team, our first team, but to work with the academy kids, the USL guys, our staff, and everyone that is within this club, because we have to indent a DNA that runs through this club. And that was why we made the moves and the decisions that we've made in the last few weeks.
Thank you, David. The next question is for Steve Brenner. Steve, your line is off mute.
Thanks, Jackie. Steve Brenner here from The Sun and other UK media. Just a question for you, David, just off the back of what you were saying about Phil. I mean, you've obviously known him for many years, hasn't really got too much experience in the men's game. What do you think he can really bring for the team? And also, you mentioned about watching the games at home and stuff. You've had a lot of success on and off the field. Was there any ever a time where you thought that maybe you've kind of bitten off more than you can chew when things potentially weren't going as planned on the field?
No, never. There was never a moment where I didn't think it was too much or it was getting too much for myself, for the ownership group, for the club, for the players. But I knew pretty soon that we needed as an ownership group to make changes. And I think it was better doing it sooner rather than later. I think as you speak, obviously, about Phil's experience, and of course, he's had a few experiences, obviously, in the men's game, and obviously more recent in the women's national team. But Phil's experience comes as a player. He's worked with some of the best managers around the game. He's worked with some of the best players. He's been around most of the best academy systems within the Premier League and within soccer in general. So I think that experience is huge. Now, one of the reasons why I felt Phil would be a great fit within this club is because there's huge potential. There's huge potential to work with our academy kids. There's huge potential to work with our USL boys. And there's huge potential within our club and our first team where there are talented young players, and it's also combined with experienced players. And obviously with Phil's experience within, what he's been doing the last few years with the women's national team, I think he put himself into a position where, it was a challenge because he's not done that before. He's not been around, a women's national team before. And there's certain challenges that come with that and certain restrictions. And I think it also runs parallel with what happens within the MLS and what happens within this league as well. So I felt that a transition with that would be perfect. And like I said, you know, his experience comes from playing with some of the best players in the world, being managed and coached by the best coaches and managers within the game. And I have no doubt that that is where his experience lies. And we have full confidence, because we wouldn't have made this decision to bring Phil in at this level if we didn't know his capabilities.
Thank you, Steve. Next up, we will go to Kobe Price. Kobe, your line is off mute.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Jorge and David, for joining us today. Had a question for both of you. David, you mentioned wanting to be more hands-on this year on the soccer side, soccer operations. What does that look like on a day-to-day basis for you? What exactly does that entail? And for Jorge, you mentioned the DNA, or you guys both mentioned the DNA not being there year one, or wanting to bring that DNA in year two. Why wasn't that in year one? Thank you.
Well, I think that, you know, I'll answer obviously what, you know, obviously the first question that you asked me. And I think that for us, more importantly, that, you know, I always plan to be hands-on, and I have been hands-on, but unfortunately from the other side of the world, not for my decision. And, you know, that was obviously a tough year for me personally, because I felt that, you know, I always said from day one that I will be a hands-on owner. I will be over all the operations of the coaching staff, the academy system, everything that goes on the field and to do with the playing side was my responsibility. But obviously with everything that's gone on with the pandemic over the last year, it was impossible to be here. Now, obviously this year, you know, I've been here since Christmas Day. I've been here with my family since Christmas Day, and I've been in the training facility every single morning, working with the medical staff, the coaches that we have here, talking with the players that we've had in, going through each item that we wasn't happy with last year, whether it was you know, in the backroom staff, on the field, the training facility. So those are my responsibilities, and when I commit to something, I very rarely step away from it. So, you know, being here for the last 3 weeks has been very rewarding. A couple of things that have been eye-opening, and that's why we've really made the changes that we've made. I felt that it was important to install the culture that we expect at this club, the hard work that we expect at this club, and also, you know, we've spoke about the young players that are around, you know, our city, and the real opportunity and potential that we have, and we need people within this club that are going to work with these young kids. It's not just about our top team, our first team. It's about the academy. It's about the USL. It's about the potential that runs through this club, and that was the most important thing for me to see and to understand, and one of the reasons why we have made the changes that we've had. But I'm very happy to be back here. I'm very happy to be more hands-on, and I'll be here as long as it takes to get that right. And I feel that we've made the changes now that will install that culture. But like I said, you know, I think it's so important that, yes, we produce and great soccer players, and also produce the opportunity for these young kids to step up and have success in this game. But more importantly, we want to have the opportunity to bring these young kids in that are going to be made into great human beings.
Thank you, David. Jorge?
Good afternoon, Kobe. I think when you think about and we reflect back on 2020, and you look at the impact of COVID and the starts and stops and the truncated season and the lack of continuity, and you know, some people ask their questions, was it really a true indication and test of you know, people's ability reflected in a full year? And I want to echo something that David just alluded to, which has to do with player development. This is a team and an organization that's going to develop players. We're blessed to live in South Florida, have a significant talent pool that will eventually build up the ranks to young, you know, men and players who aspire to be for the first team. But, you know, I speak on behalf of David and us at the player development side of what happened in 2020. was not to David's satisfaction or ownership satisfaction, especially with some of the young talent on the team. So all of the decisions that we've made are all driven by developing players, about when someone steps foot in Inter Miami as a club, they become a better player and a better person. And we feel that change in leadership was necessary in order to emphasize the things that we as ownership want to emphasize. So I think that David articulated, I think, very, very well exactly what we expect from the leadership at Inter Miami.
Thank you, Kobe. The next question is coming from Felipe Cardenas. Felipe, your line is off mute.
Thank you, Jackie. Good afternoon to everybody, and to Jorge and David. Thank you for your time. This question is for David. What will your involvement be in the dynamics? How will that change in working with Chris and Phil as far as player recruitment, roster strategy, and just organizing the squad to play the style that this club expects to play? How will your involvement change from perhaps what it was with the previous staff?
Well, I think it will change. Firstly, good afternoon. I think it will change, in simple terms, the fact that I'm actually physically here. I think it was very difficult last year, but it was pretty evident that it wasn't exactly how I wanted and how I visioned our team playing, how the development of the players was being done within the club, within the facility. We have one of the best facilities in the US. We have one of the best facilities actually in the game, even through Europe. So, we have to utilize that. We have, like Jorge said, in South Florida, we have such potential with the young kids that we have around our city. And my working with Chris and working with Phil, we'll be very hands-on. Like I said, I've been in the training facility for the last 2.5-3 weeks, every single day, going through the details of what it needs to make sure that this club is treated and is seen as one of the top clubs in the game. And I think that was why it was so important to make the changes that we needed to make sooner rather than later. With obviously Chris coming in, and Chris's experience, speaks for itself. His history speaks for itself. He's a hard-working, and the experience that he has will be so important for this club. And obviously Phil, I've known Phil for a number of years, since we were probably 15, 16 years old. So I know what he's like, his hard work, the ethic that he works with is really incredible, and the loyalty and like I said, the hard work, not just with our top players, but the hard work with our younger players as well. The guys from our city. So that, I think, is integral to the success of our club. Going through the roster, going through the players that we have, that we bring in, player recruitment. I've always been over the. Obviously some of the stuff, but obviously not physically being here. I've had to trust, what was going on. But I think that going forward, I will be over every single player that comes into this club. I will be over every single player that we are looking at, that we are interested in, and also be over every single player that is at this club, because I think that it's important that we have a culture here that we are looking after our players, looking after the players that are going to stay at the club, also looking after the players that leave the club, because I think it's so important to have a reputation that runs through our club, that players don't want to leave, or they do want to come, or when they do leave, they speak about our club as if, they've been here for 10, 20 years. So I think that culture will be introduced even more so with Chris and with Phil's leadership.
Thank you, Felipe. We'll take 2 more questions. We'll go ahead and start with Jeff and end with Mike Cugno. Jeff, your line is off mute.
Thank you. Jeff Carlisle with ESPN. My question is for David. David, just in looking at the reaction to the hiring of Phil Neville, it's been suggested that the hiring was driven in large part by your relationship with him. What's your response to that? And what is it about Phil's coaching experience that you think makes him well suited for this?
Well, of course. Firstly, good afternoon. My relationship with Philip, like I said, I've known him since I was 15, 16 years old, from a young kid. And I know what he's like. I knew what he was like as a player. I know what he's like as a human being. I know what his work ethic is like. Him and his brother Gary. I've never seen two players work as hard at their game in my whole career. So to actually have someone like that come into this club, of course, people are always going to turn around and say, oh, it's because he's your friend. It's nothing to do with him being my friend. I'm an owner of a club with Jorge. Our ownership group don't just employ our friends. We employ the best people, whether it's on the field, off the field, in our backroom staff, the staff that we have working at our training facility, at the stadium. We are running a serious soccer club here, and I think at the end of the day, we hire people that we feel are best suited for the job. And my loyalty to Phil has always been there, because as a player, I relied on him to keep making those runs by the side of me. I never gave him the ball because I thought I was a better crosser of the ball than he was, so he never got those balls. But I knew that he would keep on making those runs because he knew that was what was best for the team. And he would make those decisions as a coach, not just of our club, but a coach of our academy system, of a coach of our USL team, and as a leader. That's why he's in this position. Nothing to do with the relationship that we have, the friendship that we have, the loyalty that we have to each other. He's the right man for the job. And I've already seen, since he's been here for the last week, his work ethic, what he's done with the medical team, what the changes that he's made with the coaching staff, the changes that he's made with the players, the changes that he's made throughout the facility, is so important. And that's what I expect of our football club. And that's what I expect from Phil as a coach. So he's the right man.
I'd like to interject something. And good afternoon, Jeff. How are you? I hope you and the family are well. And I'll say it in maybe more direct terms than David can. Phil Neville was not handed the Inter Miami job. Phil Neville earned the job. There was a very thorough interview process with multiple candidates. As you may imagine, the Inter Miami head coaching position is an extremely attractive position. There were inquiries and interests from coaches from all over the globe. We and David as well conducted multiple interviews for the head coaching job with a myriad of candidates with different backgrounds. So, Phil earned it. Phil is the right man for the job at this time. So, the fact that he's David's friend is a reality, and no one runs from that. Actually, we embrace it, but he wasn't given or handed the job because he's friends with David Beckham or solely because of his relationship with David Beckham. Phil Neville earned his job, and I'm very proud as a co-owner of this club to have Phil on board. And as well as when you speak to Chris Henderson before, again, Chris earned this job. Again, this is a very, very attractive position. I think Chris is uber qualified for what we want to do, but more importantly, it's Chris and Phil together. That combination is extremely important, that they work together, that they be on the same page, that they be coordinated in terms of how do we build the roster, what do we do, David's involvement, how do we fill international slots. I mean, all of the things that go into that, but I want to be very, very clear that from amongst the ownership group that, Phil earned his job, and I'm extremely proud today to be here as part of his presentation.
Thank you, Jeff. And the last question will go to Mike Hugno. Mike, your line is off mute.
All right, well, Jorge, I was going to follow up with that question to you, but you guys mentioned the academy and how important that was. So I guess this could be for both of you to see a guy like Felipe Valencia come up and make that transition through the academy and through the program. How important was a step like that for your organization to take?
That was my dream, to be honest. When I first started this 8 years ago, I was lucky to have been obviously involved with one of probably the most successful academy systems within Manchester United, and Phil was part of that as well. And I always knew that that was going to be the culture, the DNA, and what created the community of our club. Yes, we want to bring, great players and great names into our club, but the DNA of this club has to be what comes through our academy system. And the young guys that we have here and the potential of the guys that we have here is huge and could be so much bigger. So to have the right coaches, to have the right culture, to have the right DNA to bring these players through, this is what makes us as owners proud. Yes, like I said, we want to bring big names in, and we have done so far. But I think the proudest moment for us as owners and as a club and as a family and with our fans, there's nothing prouder than seeing a homegrown player come through our system and play at the highest level. I had it at Manchester United, and whatever player we brought into the club, whatever player that came in and was a big signing, I don't think anything compared to the young players that we're bringing through, that were being brought through the academy system, that were going into our first team. If you speak to any Manchester United, any Manchester United fan, they will tell you that moment where a young kid comes through our academy system and competes at the highest level and then also goes on to play for their national teams, that's what makes a club proud. That's what gives a club their DNA. And that's what we're so proud of already. We have young players that are coming through, like you said, and also, a player like Ian Frey. We have young players. We don't want to put too much expectation on these players. We don't want to put too much pressure on these players. But if they're good enough, it doesn't matter what age they are, they will be given a chance. They will be given a chance by Phil. They will be given a chance by Chris, our coaching staff, and everyone involved in this club, because that is the club that we want to be. We want to be known as one of these great academies that has produced some great players that have come through as homegrown talent, so our fans can sit in that stadium and their parents can sit in that stadium and see these young players come through and play at the highest level. That will be the proudest moment for us, and that is what is so important for us. And that was my dream from day one, that the academy system is so strong and better than anyone else's.
David, Jorge, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's continue this press conference. Let's officially welcome Inter Miami head coach Phil Neville and Chief Soccer Officer and Sporting Director Chris Henderson. We will immediately open the floor for questions. So if you have a question, please go ahead and raise your hand at this time. We will get started with Daniel Nora. Daniel, your line is off mute.
Thank you, Jackie. Hi, Phil. Hi, Chris. Welcome. Considering that player development is a priority in this new stage, How far will be the objective to compete at a high level in the league in the short term?
Yeah, I can take that question. Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, I think the development system, as Jorge and David just spoke to, is vitally important for the club. We want to have players who come into our club and are able to play at the highest level they can, whether it's a young player through the academy playing at the USL and using that pathway through the USL into the first team. And as David touched on, if the player is good enough, he's going to play. Phil is open to playing and competing every game. And I think that's the way the club wants to go. And being able to have players represent the MLS team who are players who grew up in South Florida. The community can be proud of the team. For us, our connection with our club from the academy through the first team, our connection with our fans is vital. And being able to connect with our community is an expectation of every player who's coming to our club.
Thank you. Next question is from Joe Curry. Joe, your line is off mute.
Joe Curry, BBC Sports. Good to see you, Phil. I hope you're well. What's it going to be like having your best friend as your boss? How's that dynamic going to work professionally and personally?
Afternoon, Joe. I thought I'd lost you when I came out here. Well, obviously, I think the reality is that David is my friend, but I think from 2-3 weeks ago, he did become my boss, and I think we have a relationship, or we've had a relationship for 20, I'd say 90% of my life, where we've been very professional. Yes, our families have been friends, but I think when it gets down to work, we're here to win, we're here to be successful, we're here to build something really great. And I think there will be times when we have difficult conversations, but I think because of the loyalty, the trust, and the friendship that's been unbroken for the 90% of our lives, that will always remain the same. But I think because we've got the same goal of wanting to do something really special, to build something here that can be bigger than anything else that we've done in our careers or our lives, is something that excites me. And you know, in 20 years' time, we'll still be friends, our families will still be friends, but hopefully this will be one of the best chapters of our friendship.
Thank you, Joe. Next question is from Tom Bogert. Tom, your line is off mute.
Hey guys, thanks for doing this. Nice to speak with you. This question's for Chris. I guess first, what really lured you to Miami, and what's next this offseason as you really get underway here?
Hi, Tom. Yeah, for me, I've always believed in the Inter Miami project, and I feel like this is a global club. The resources and the support of ownership is the best in the league. The facilities are one of the best in the world, from going and seeing it in the last week. It's a fantastic setup for our guys and support for our guys. And in this project, the potential to compete for championships every day, have the support, and be able to build something not just from the first team, but a complete DNA of the club. To be able to create a culture, to have alignment through every department in our club, that we are all going for the same goal, and that everyone is supporting what happens with the first team staff and the first team players, and feeling a part of that. And you look at culture in a club, and for me, that is all the little things that happen every single day at the club. And if you do that consistently and positively over time, that equates to big results.
Thank you, Tom. Next question is from Franco Panizo, SBI Soccer. Franco, you're off mute.
Thanks, Jackie. Hey, guys. Welcome to South Florida. Question for each of you, if that's okay. Chris, starting with you. Obviously, you guys have talked about the academy players and instilling a DNA in the team. But short term, on the field, in 2021 and 2022, what are the goals for this team? It's obviously an ambitious project. They've talked since day one about trying to compete and be a contender, but what are the immediate short-term goals for the first team on the field? And then for Phil, I wanted to ask David and Jorge this, so I'm going to have to ask you, when your predecessor was appointed, his CONCACAF Champions League wins were pointed to as why he's the head coach. In a similar vein, what qualifications do you think you have proven and to get this position as head coach of such an ambitious project? Thank you.
A great question. So short-term goals, Phil and I have talked about his game model, the way he wants to play, being able to have an understanding of that and how we're going to build those pieces. So at the beginning, it's assessing everything that we have here, the pieces that are in, and then building competition at every position. We need to have competition every single day. So we have a team that's ready. When we have an injury, the next guy's ready to step up. So we will be pushing our players. We will be looking to improve in positions because competition's good. And we want to compete for championships every year. I think we, as a global club and a team that can compete with the elite in this league, when you build that competition, when you have a clear identity of how you want to play, then you can get to that position where you're competing every week. But as David and Jorge talked to about the hard work and the work ethic, we need that work ethic all the way through the club, from the players all the way through the staff. And I think both of us are hard workers, and we're excited to get started together.
Afternoon. I think it's pretty simple. I think when people throw about the lack of experience, I always throw back that actually I've got a lot of experience of being around winners, a lot of experience about winning myself as a player, but actually coaching at the very top level in Spain with Valencia at Manchester United, and with the England national team getting to a World Cup semi-final. So in terms of what we want to build here, we've talked about identity, we've talked about connecting with the public. I've seen that. I've seen what best practice is when you walk into the training ground, which is one of the best training grounds I've ever been to. We have to behave in a certain way, and I call it elite behaviour. Elite behaviour is doing the right thing every minute of every single day, and I've lived that myself as a player, and I've seen and coached that way with some of the best players in both the men's and the women's game. So ultimately, I'm coming into this job to instill those values into this football club about what it takes to actually win. And I think I know those qualities, what it takes. We've spoke about the identity, the commitment, the discipline, the hard work. These are fundamentals that I want to instill into this football club. So ultimately, I think it's a great opportunity for me. We spoke about the youth system that we've got here. I've got great experience being produced myself as a young player, and giving opportunities to young players as a coach. And I think lastly, the journey that I've just been on with the England women's national team is very similar to the journey that I see here. It was a journey where we was trying to grow something really special with the England women's national team. It wasn't in the forefront of everybody's mind. We wanted to get to be the best in the world, and we went on a journey for 3 years of instilling those values into a team to try to become the best. And that's the philosophy that I want to do here, working with great owners and working alongside Chris, who's got great experience.
Thank you, Franco. Next question will go to Ryan Tolmich, and then we will go to Tim Thornton. Ryan, your line is off mute.
Hey guys, I appreciate you guys doing this. Phil, your brother was on TV the other day kind of just discussing the differences between you, and he said one of the things was that you thought about being a manager and that you approached the game a different way. Yeah. As manager of Inter Miami, what is your approach going to be, and when did it kind of pop into your head that this was something that you could kind of pursue?
I think I started my coaching badges when I was 22. From the age of 22, I just became engrossed, obsessed with coaching, with the tactical, the technical side. I wrote down every session. So from an early age, I had the bug to wanting to be a coach. I think when you're a coach, you've got to have that kind of obsession. So I think that's where me and Gary are slightly different. He has other sort of like ambitions. But ultimately, when I see our great supporters coming to this stadium, when I see the owners coming to this stadium, I want them to see a team that they're proud of. I want them to see an identity to say, well, that's the team that we want to watch, want to support, and want to get behind. And that's my whole philosophy about the hard work, the discipline, the concentration, but more importantly, an enjoyment and a style of football that I think, for me, I have a philosophy that's non-negotiable. I want us to play a certain style of football, and I always focus on the work that's needed to go into winning. Winning is the dream. Winning is the dream for this football club, to win the championships, to win the medals, to become the best in this country. But ultimately, the work that we have to put in is going to be huge, and that's the challenge that me and Chris have got, along with the owners. We're in the early stages of our development, but from day one, we want to challenge the players to become the best they possibly can.
Thank you, Ryan. Tim, your line is off mute.
Can I ask you about your period with the England women's team? How important was that in terms of your development as a coach? And with England and also with Valencia, you push yourself out of your comfort zone as a coach. Do you feel as though you thrive on those new challenges?
It's what I always wanted to do. I didn't want to be one of those coaches that just stayed in Manchester all his life. I wanted to have new experiences. I always wanted to learn a language, and that's why I took the opportunity to go to Valencia and learn Spanish, work in a different culture. And I think since I finished my playing career, every experience has been different. Every experience has helped me build my own experiences, build a library of experiences that I can fall back on. And when the opportunity came to come to the MLS, it was a great opportunity, but it's something that, you know, I've been watching MLS football since David came to the LA Galaxy. I spent 8 weeks in the LA Galaxy watching Bruce Arena. I have good friends as managers in this league. So I'm an obsessive type of guy. I'm an obsessive type of coach that wants to learn different experiences. So I'm a fast learner. I've come out to a place that I've always wanted to live and work, and I'm going to adapt really quickly. I've got great people around me. I've got Chris obviously around me who's got great experience, and I'm going to surround myself with the best people to give ourselves the best opportunity to be successful.
Thank you, Tim. Next, we will go to Mike Depasquale and then to Jada Evans. Mike, your line is off mute.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. This question is for Phil. Phil, I know you had other obligations this past year. How did you follow this team, Inter Miami, if you did at all? And to bring Higuain, Matuidi in, the caliber of play like that, will you be looking for players that have that experience on the international level to bring in?
Well, to answer your first point, your question, I watched the majority of every single game. Obviously, with the time difference, sometimes it's difficult. I would always watch the recordings afterwards, purely and simply to support a team that I feel as if I've followed for the last 8 years since David wanted to get involved with buying a franchise in America. I felt as if I followed the journey from day one. So I watched a lot of the games. Was a massive supporter for David, obviously, as a friend. I think there's great potential in this team. Obviously, results didn't go the way a lot of the time is in the way that we wanted to. But in terms of the caliber of player that we want to attract, I think there's two types of players that we want. We want the international star. We live in a world where football is universal. We're going to be on every single telly worldwide. So we need an international player that can relate to every household in the world. But ultimately, I think that young homegrown player is absolutely essential to this football club. Someone that we can put on that field that has the heart of an Inter Miami player. And I think that is the biggest challenge over the next 12 months. And I've got to say, with the backing of the ownership and the work that me and Chris are going to do, that is my goal this year, is to put somebody on that field that's got Inter Miami blood. And it's something that I'm massively into, something that's part of my DNA and my philosophy. And we've got some exciting young players coming through, but ultimately those experienced players that we've got, those international players with real quality, are going to play a massive part in our success.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Jada, your line is off mute.
Hi, Chris. Hope you're doing well. I had a question for you. When you talk about actually almost everything that you talked about as far as the success and wanting to build the Miami franchise up from the youth league, from the academy, everything basically except for the facility sounds the same as Seattle, and you were proven here. So did you hit a ceiling, or it just still sounds so confusing as to why you would leave here to go there?
Great to hear from you, Jada. I hope you're doing well. You know, I think, the success that I had with Seattle, and I think, you know, going through those experiences, you know, when Inter Miami, when I looked at the project and spoke with the ownership, it was an exciting new opportunity to take a team that can get to the championship level and has aspirations to be a global club. So the challenge is exciting. It's a huge challenge, and it's going to take a lot of work and evaluation and assessment, and it's great to work with a new coach who has energy, and to have David's involvement in the everyday building of the team, the excitement of being able to build a team and add some exciting pieces. And I, 20 years ago, I was here in the South Florida market, won a Supporter Shield with the Miami Fusion. So to be able to come back and connect with the fans here and have an opportunity to grow things here in South Florida, you look at where MLS was in 1996 with 10 teams, and now we're on our way to 30 teams. I'm just proud as a former American international to have a domestic league that is going in the direction it is. I think we should be proud of where MLS is, and Inter Miami wants to be one of the top clubs in the league.
Thank you, Jada. Next, we will go to Chris Whittingham and then to Steve Brenner. Chris, your line is off mute.
Thank you, Jackie, and good afternoon, guys. One question for the both of you. First, for Chris, do you feel like the club has enough resources, not commitment from ownership, but cap space and allocation money to build out, particularly the domestic side of the roster? A lot of internationals, but not a ton of domestics that would appear obvious. And Phil, there's kind of a narrative that foreign coaches come into the league and struggle, particularly those without experience in America, in terms of the travel, the heat, all the difficult, the salary cap rules and the roster rules. Are you kind of prepared almost to be frustrated at times with how different coaching in this league is than it is coaching in Europe or in other leagues? Thank you.
Yeah, when you look at adding pieces, we obviously had the draft and added Ame and Josh yesterday. Some young additions who are going to be excited to join our team. We're looking at the next few transfer windows. Sometimes there's players who can come in right away, and then sometimes you have to wait several windows. So the scouting, the infrastructure behind the recruitment is there, and I think we will be able to add piece by piece, but also be able to evaluate what we have. There are some challenges, with the salary cap. You have to have players who are trained right and outperform contracts. And I think that's how you have success in the league, is when players come and they perform well. I think everyone ends up winning in the end.
Good afternoon. I think that for me, that's the biggest challenge for me as a coach, is to come here and prove to people that foreign coaches can come here and be successful. I think that's the one thing that really excites me, is to prove people wrong, is to make sure that when I do leave, is that I'm successful. And I think, yes, there are many things that I've got to learn. I've sat through the last week, going through the draft system, obviously talking to Chris and his great experience through the cap system. But I've got to say, I think for me, it's been really simple, because it's been working with Chris and adapting to different types of situations. I'm an adaptable type of coach. There will be things about the travel, etc., and the different time zones that we have to adapt to as well. But ultimately, I think in my football career, in my short coaching career, we've had to adapt to different situations like travel, like heat, etc. So I've got good experience with that. I came out to America for every pre-season, where we were in a different city every 2 or 3 days. We had to adapt to it, and we were playing a game in the East Coast, the West Coast, every 2 or 3 days. So I'm looking forward to the challenge. I'm looking forward to the league starting, and I just wish it was tomorrow.
Thank you, Chris. Brenner, your line is off mute.
Thank you, Jackie. Hi, Phil. Hope you're well. And just you said that this is obviously a great opportunity for you, but you obviously you had a great job with the FA, and then also potentially going to the Olympics with Team GB. Can you maybe talk about the decisions that you made to move on from that? Because it looked like you were sort of nailed on for the Team GB job.
Yeah, I think I did have a fantastic job, and I worked with absolutely fantastic people. And I've got to say, the players that I worked with were some of the best players I've worked with. And I was sad to say goodbye to them a couple of weeks ago. But I think sometimes in your career you get opportunities that you can't turn down. And I think when this opportunity came up, I sat down with my boss at the FA, Sue Campbell, and I said, look, I've got 6 months left on my contract. Yes, we've got an Olympics, but this is just too big an opportunity for me to turn down. It's something that I'd always aspired to be, is to work in America, but to work for a great football club. And Sue didn't stand in my way. I've got to say a massive thank you Tusu to allowing me to follow my dream. Sad to leave such a great organisation who will continue to do well. They've got a coach coming in Serena who will do a fantastic job, and hopefully they will go on and get that gold medal that we've all strived for the last 10, 15 years. But ultimately, I think in life, you get one opportunity. And I think this was my big one opportunity that I had to grasp. And I did with the help of everybody else. And I'm really looking forward to the challenge ahead.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we will go to Steve Bates, and then we will take 2 more questions before we conclude today's press conference. Steve, your line is off mute.
Hello, Phil. Good afternoon.
Steve, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you. All good. Phil, can I just ask you, in the earlier part of the conference, David was talking about the importance of building a DNA from the ground up. It's not always an easy thing to do, but both you and David have been at a club where, in Manchester United, where the DNA was absolutely sort of crucial to the whole ethos of the club, and still exists, 60, 70 years after Sir Matt Busby. Is the Manchester United way of playing and the DNA that is Man United, is that the vision for you and David to instill that kind of a United DNA in Miami? I know it's different cultures, but the ethos is the same, I'm sure.
Well, I think when you talk about the Manchester United DNA, I think it's the DNA of probably the most successful people, businesses throughout the world. I speak a lot with Jorge, and he talks about the values of his own company, the values of his own life, and those are the same values that Sir Alex Ferguson had, Manchester United have, or the best teams that are successful now in the world. So it's not just a Manchester United DNA. I think there are great parallels in terms of the way that we want to promote our young players. We want to give opportunities to our younger players. We want to make sure that we play with a style and we have a behaviour about us that is absolutely top. But ultimately, I think those qualities are the same qualities that probably Chris had in his career when he was successful at Seattle and as a player. And those qualities is what we want to install in this football club. I think when I arrived and landed in Miami, I came straight to the training ground, and straight away when you see the facility, when you see the stadium, and you see the infrastructure and the foundations of the football club, that is through hard work, that's through having a vision, and we want to continue that vision now by making us successful on the field. And yes, Steve, we've worked together, we've obviously spent time together covering football in Manchester, and those were the fundamental non-negotiables and values of that football club. Hard work, determination, giving opportunities to younger people, making sure that the fan base is connected and can see on the pitch something that they can be proud of. And I think this year me and Chris have spoke long and hard about that connection with the supporters to make sure that when they turn up to this unbelievable facility, they see a team that they're proud of. And when Jorge and David are watching upstairs, they look down and they see something that they love and that they want to come back and invest even more than what they're doing in.
Thank you, Steve. Next, we'll go to Katia. Katia, your line is off mute.
Thanks, Jackie. This question's for Phil. Good to hear that you've learned Spanish. Hola, Phil. Bienvenido a Miami. I wanted to get your thoughts on the current roster. What excites you the most about the talent that you'll have, the designated players, if there's something missing from the team, or what have you seen so far?
Well, I think first and foremost, I think in the future I will be doing press conferences in Spanish, but at this moment I'm a little bit nervous about doing it on my first press conference. So maybe in the first game of the season we speak Spanish. So that I will promise you. But in terms of the roster, I think I've got friends in this league that tell me all the time how good of players we've got down here. So ultimately, I want to evaluate the players that we've got here. I think we've got some tremendous senior players. We've got a group of players that probably underperformed a little bit, that know themselves. They're going to take accountability, that they will get better next season. Obviously, every season you need to keep improving, and me and Chris are working together to make sure that we get the best possible roster for day one of the season. And I think it will take time, but ultimately, what I see in some of the guys that have come and are training at the facility at this moment in time, I think there's a real hunger and determination amongst them now. I sent a message to the players at the start of the week, just introducing myself, just to say hello, and the messages and the conversations that I'm having is that I think these set of players know that they're a little bit hurt, they're a little bit scarred at this moment in time for the performances from last season. And they want to come back this season and show everyone how good of players they are. So it's that hunger, that determination that I've seen this week that I'm sure that we can take into the season. Added that with a little bit more quality in terms of the players that we want to bring in, I think will make us a real strong unit and someone that we can be really competitive.
Thank you, Katia. And the last question will go to Jonathan Tannelwood. Jonathan, your line is off mute.
Thanks. Hi, Phil. Welcome to MLS. You've coached. This is another, as you've said, on the list of coaching experiences you've had. And we hear often that there are differences between coaching clubs and national teams, coaching men and women. And I wonder what the differences you think are and what the similarities you think are.
Well, I think I used to always get this question at my early press conferences with the women's team, and it was if the football on the women's side was played on a different planet. For me, it was football. Football for women, football for males is the same. It's a ball played on the same pitch with the same size goals, and ultimately the sessions that I did at Manchester United, the sessions I did in Valencia were no different than the sessions I did for my women's team last year. So ultimately, there are slight differences. The way that you deal with a female footballer or a male footballer, there are slight differences, which is natural. And it's something that I really enjoyed the challenge. But ultimately, when we go on the field, the tactics, the system, my philosophy was no different. The things that I say to a right back with Lucy Bronze in the England team is no different than what I would say to the Inter Miami Niles or Vigal, the right back with the male team. So ultimately, there are slight nuances, there are slight differences, but ultimately it's football played on the same pitch with the same size balls, with a referee, with supporters in the stadium, and ultimately with the same goal, and that is to win. And that's where I think the adaptation between going from men's to women's games for me has been so similar, because you can worry, you can think too much about it, but ultimately it's just a game of football.
Chris, Phil, thank you so much for your time. That concludes today's press conference. Thank you all. And to our local media members, we look forward to having you in our facility soon. Thank you.